Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another Devil's Advocate podcast. As you can see, I've got a stellar lineup with me tonight. Except Reece. I didn't realise Reece was here, so let me just remove the stellar remark. But no, I'm only kidding, pal. I'm only kidding. Look, I've got a great panel with me. Phil's back with us. You all know Phil. We've got a debutante with Kyle. Jonathan is back, and of course, my old mate, Mr. Steelman Reece himself, has decided to join the podcast. So, further ado, we'll get into it. We'll introduce the panel properly, but we're going to talk about the Wolves match and how the midfield kind of did or didn't turn up, depending on which way you view it. We're going to have a bit of a chinwag about Rasmus Højlund and Martial. We've got another one as well joining us. Hold on. And we're going to look at Tottenham Hotspur, how Postecoglou's going to set up. Darragh, evening, mate. We'll come to you in a short while. And then we'll go through score predictions and lineup. So without further ado, Phil, good to see you, mate. How are we?
Hi, Stu. Yeah, good to be back on, mate. All good my end. Obviously, good to start with a win, although the performance wasn't great. But yeah, as I say, I'm feeling good. Getting myself back fit, so hopefully I'll be back playing myself soon as well. But yeah, just glad to have the football back. Obviously, it's been a long time, especially for myself because I've been laid up as well, not been able to do much. So yeah, just obviously looking forward to the next couple of games and hoping that we can improve on the performance the other night.
No, absolutely. Well, great to have you again, Phil. Good to see you, mate. You're looking well. Kyle, welcome. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate podcast. How are you, my mate?
I'm good, and it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Absolute pleasure. Jonathan, how are you, pal?
Yeah, all good, Stu, pal. Good to have competitive football back, although I think we all expected a little bit better than that on Monday night. It kind of reeked of pre-season all over it. But look, it's good to have football back overall.
No, absolutely. Reece, good to see you, fella. Excuse my jibe at the beginning, but it wouldn't be me without the jibe, would it, pal?
Naturally. It's good to see a few folk. Obviously, it's good to see Kyle. It's been a while. Obviously, I was on Kyle's podcast last year. Obviously, Marshy, old boy, been on a few streams with him, so it's good to see him. Jonathan, and good to meet you, Darragh. Good to meet you. I don't think I've been on a stream with you before, so likewise, let's get cracking. Let's chat some football.
Excellent. And finally, Darragh, welcome. Hello, pal. Are you there? Darragh? Okay. Darragh's obviously having a few technical issues. I'm sure he'll come back when we do. Right, look, let's just crack on. I don't want to cover too much about Wolves, but if you watched our preview, if any of you watched our preview, you will note that I slightly highlighted our midfield issues. And I did say on our podcast on the Friday that probably Mount wasn't the right player to be playing alongside Casemiro, certainly against Wolves. And I thought Sancho should have come in as a false nine, a floating three, and not play Garnacho. Very strange. And as it happened, we had a rather laboured performance. So let's go quickly around the panel. Phil, I'll start with you. What did you think about the midfield, and particularly what did you think of Garnacho?
Yeah, I think obviously that was the biggest area really, which Wolves exposed us on Monday. I think in hindsight, looking at the game before, I was quite optimistic with the team lineup, and I was looking forward to obviously seeing Garnacho starting. But obviously it didn't pan out that way. I think the midfield was disjointed. Casemiro was getting left on his own at times, and we had the central midfielders running from their own half straight into our, edge of our 18-yard box, which shouldn't be happening. I think obviously the way that Wolves played was a shock to me as well. I think, they was really up for it. They was first to, all the second balls. They looked fitter, sharper, and just, they had more desire really on the night to win the game of football. Unfortunately for them, obviously they didn't get the chances and ended up doing sort of a bit of a smash and grab. But yeah, I think obviously the midfield will definitely need addressing. I think we needed that little bit more, solidarity and that little bit more protection at times, which didn't really work out with the Mason Mount Casemiro sort of, playing in that role. I think obviously the manager will look at that, and we do obviously need to bring another central midfielder in, most definitely, in my opinion, before the end of the window. Garnacho was disappointing on the night. I've sort of been singing his praises in the last few months, and I was happy to see him get a start. I just think he maybe just tried a little bit too hard at times, and he looked like he was trying to force things. But again, I think it's still only early days with him. I think he will definitely become a great player. I just think, as you said there, maybe at half time it was the right time to maybe bring him off and put Sancho on, or try and mix it up and just give him a little rest out. I think obviously that game had sort of gotten too much for him, and I think Semedo was playing fantastic. He couldn't get anything out of him, and it just needed maybe a little change. And unfortunately, for him, it wasn't his best day. But again, we got the 3 points. We kept a clean sheet somehow. The penalty at the end was a very debatable one for me. I'm very honest in my analysis, and I thought it was a penalty. I thought we definitely won there, but you sometimes need that little bit of a bit of luck, and I'm sure we will be on the end of a poor VAR decision in the coming months. So we take that and move on.
Yeah, I'll go to Reece on the pen as he's. I think he's got a strong opinion on that. Mine's exactly the same as yours, by the way, Phil. I'll explain my reasons as well a bit later. Kyle, welcome. Great to have you on board, mate. Phil made a great point about the disconnect between Casemiro and Mount. What was your assessment of that, and why do you feel that Mount was a good 20, 25 yards off of Casemiro for most of the game? You're on mute, buddy.
Yeah, it was extremely disjointed, and Casemiro was badly exposed. And I think Gary O'Neill clearly had done his homework, because Mount, for a lot of the beginning of a lot of Wolves counterattacks, Mount was on the edge of the Wolves penalty area on the left hand side. Fernandez was slightly further back on the right hand side. Casemiro in the middle, and all of a sudden, 5 Wolves attackers were converging on him. I remember even one counter attack where he was obstructed by a Wolves player, and 2 more runners just broke free, and all of a sudden there was 5 Wolves attackers on 4 United defenders, and this was happening again and again. United, there was no protection at all for United's back four. Casemiro looked a bit off the pace as well, I must add. But that midfield 3, I don't think can continue, certainly in that formation. I expect Ten Hag to make either a personnel tweak or a formational tweak for the next game. And like you said, I think Garnacho will come out of the starting lineup against Spurs, and Sancho will come in and play as a false 9, with Rashford reinstated to his forward position on the left. So, yeah, that midfield 3 doesn't look like it has a future, to be honest with you.
Just a quick follow up to that, then, Carl, because you make very eloquently put. You're exactly right. So I saw it as well. But last year when we had our midfield 3 of Casemiro, Eriksen, and Bruno, people were suggesting that Eriksen was run out of legs should he come on as an impact player. And I always argued that calmness on a football pitch is what you need. Phil, as a striker, will tell you that if he's got his back to goal, he's looking for an Eriksen type player to direct him on which way the ball's going to go, or for Phil to tell him where he wants the ball. This wasn't happening against Wolves. So is there an argument for Eriksen to come in, or do you think Ten Hag will work on Mount's discipline for this Tottenham game and bring him back the 20 yards that we need? What do you think will happen?
He might do that. He might in the short term, hopefully work on Mount's discipline. But I think in the long term, I don't really see Eriksen being a regular starter. He might come in for the odd game, and he'll obviously be used as a substitute. But last season, Eriksen looked, especially when he came back from injury, he looked woefully short of legs. He's looking like a player who's aging, and certainly not the ideal partner for Casemiro either. I think, in my opinion, what we need is to bring in who everybody's been talking about, is Amrabat from Fiorentina, to come in and make the midfield a bit more solid, bring a bit more steel in there, especially in big games. Yeah, and that will obviously give us more time. If he, like, for example, if Amrabat was on the bench and we were to bring him on for Mount, after 45 or 60 minutes, I think it would have been a completely different game. We would have got had more control of the game and stopped those Wolves counterattacks, and probably would have resulted in more chances for ourselves. So we need to have that option. Obviously, Kobe Menu will come back into the Ragnar when he comes back from injury. But yeah, I just don't see a long-term future for the current midfield three.
Okay, so that begs the golden question, Jonathan, which I'm going to pose to you, buddy. You're not going to like it. If, as Carl suggests, then that Mount can't play alongside Casemiro, Eriksen's not really a starter for Casemiro, Amrabat does come in, or Gravenbach, say, for example, comes in, what do you do with Mason Mount and what do you do with Bruno Fernandes? Because you're going to have a two goes into one situation.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting question for Ten Hag to answer, but I still think it's a little bit early to be tearing up that midfield three experiment. It is very early days, and like Ten Hag has obviously seen something in him that he thinks will work in that system long term. I think Wolves, even though United were very rusty on Monday themselves, I think Wolves did catch them off guard. I mean, that was the most un-Wolverhampton Wanderers-like performance I've seen in a long, long time. They're renowned for being a quite defensive team, play with five at the back with two holding midfielders. They're normally very, very difficult to break down. I mean, you only have to look at the last, I think, 10 or 11 games between the two clubs. I think only two matches have had more than a goal in it or something like that. So the performance itself would have been a shock, aside from the system that Ten Hag was lining up. So I think it is a learning curve. He could deploy the same midfield three on Saturday against Spurs and it could absolutely tear it up. They could be absolutely spot on. I still think he will give it time. But like you said, if it doesn't work out long term, you could see the likes of Mount been shifted further forward. And, I don't think he's really a right winger. So you've got yet another kind of left-sided midfielder who likes to cut in on his right foot, which we have in absolute bucket loads with Rashford, Garnacho, Sancho. So I mean, like, you'd like to think that we can make it work, or he can make it work some way in the way he intends to do. But it will be a bit of a waste of £60-odd million if he can't make it work.
No, I totally agree. Reece, welcome. How are we, mate?
I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine.
Good, man. Looking sharp as ever, mate. Couple of questions. I want to ask you a bit of a direct question about Garnacho, first and foremost, and then I want to get your take on the penalty. The question I've got for you with regards to Garnacho is going to sound rather strange, pal, but to me, it didn't look like Garnacho had reverted back to where he was 12 months ago. It looked to me like he'd lost a yard of pace. Not that he'd lost that directness, not that he'd lost that intensity in his play. He just looked like to me he'd lost a yard of pace, which for an 18-year-old kid is quite disturbing. What were your thoughts, mate?
To be fair, throughout the game, I don't think he was as explosive and as direct as he should have been. I think it does come down to the opposition. I mean, I think Bill was spot on, to be fair, about Nelson Semedo. I mean, quite ironic for a player who wasn't, in my opinion, particularly good at Barcelona, wasn't particularly good in Portugal on a consistent basis as a wing-back, let alone a full-back. It's the same old narrative. You play against United, you're going to turn up. I mean, what's next? Like, he has a World Cup winning performance for Portugal. I highly doubt it. But when you look at circumstance, I think Semedo's pace definitely did counteract Garnacho. I'm going to say as well, it was definitely the wrong game to start Garnacho. Like, in terms of like how you use him, I would have started Sancho personally, whether it be off the left, off of Rashford through the middle, or if it had been roles reverse, as like it says, like Sancho through the middle as a false nine. I'm not an issue with that. I've been crying out for Sancho to be a central player for nearly 2 years. If he's in that position, then fine. But I think this is one thing that I said in the live chat on the review show you did for the Wolves game the other day, and my exact words were, Ten Hag set Garnacho up to fail. And it's nothing like that. And people are going to come at me in that way and think, oh, you're criticising the manager, or you're taking us out in a negative aspect. I'm not really, because there's aspects where a manager has to deliberately set up a player to fail, because you have to see how a player responds. I mean, Phil, out of all of us, will know exactly what I mean. He's played in those games where a manager has to make a decision where you may not like it, but shut up and get on with it. Garnacho was played in a game where he was way out of his own depth. He was way out of his own touch against Wolves. They completely exposed him in that sense. Like, he was positionally, he was too high, which doesn't help when Anthony's also on the field as well. Anthony's a very good winger as well. But if you're going to play both Anthony and Garnacho, one of them has to be higher up and the other has to be at least 10, 15 yards deeper. I should know, I was a winger. Like, you've got to be at least 10, 15 yards deeper, because at least it will allow the striker to come back, allow the midfield to have space to move. If both your wingers are high, if both your wingers are up that high, you're at an 8 versus 10 disadvantage. And you look at us, we were completely disadvantaged at the weekend. So I look at it in the sense of, well, Monday I should say, it felt like a weekend because it was that slow. But when you look at it in a nutshell, like, Garnacho was in the wrong position, wrong time, and it was the wrong game. Yeah. That's exactly what I thought on that. What was your other question again? Sorry.
I was about to say, by the way, Reece, that was a lot when you play a 4-3-3 against a 4-2-3-1.
Yeah.
Wingers are a massive problem. The other question was Onana and the penalty that definitely was. that
was the most obvious penalty I've ever seen. Anybody that thinks that wasn't a penalty, get off Rod Watch or get off Crime Watch and start watching real TV. Like, that was 100% a penalty. Like, Onana, I mean, I'm a wrestling fan. I mean, says it all below. Like, he is literally channeling his inner GBL. That was a clothesline from hell. Like, he literally took out. Like, it wasn't just one player he took out as well. It was two players. There's arguments for two penalties there. Yeah. And I was very surprised as well that a penalty wasn't given. Like, I was more surprised as well that Gary O'Neill got booked for protesting it. But I was like, well, he was right to protest. He was actually in the clear. And I found it really... what was even more distasteful was I watched the commentary after the game, like the review of it, and Gary O'Neill was, funnily enough, shown to a screen, oh, here's the penalty decision. Do you change your mind? And he's like, no, of course not, because look at him. He's literally wrapped his arm and he's missed the ball completely. He's dove at him and he's taken out. Yes, Onana's mental, but there's times where he is really have to be restricted a bit. If he's going to go for the ball, then great. Because we saw that towards the end. That clearance when he literally dove forward and collected the ball, that was great. But if you're going to go in that sort of angle, at least make sure you can actually physically see the ball. When he was going for the ball in that circumstance, one, he couldn't see it, and two, he was never going to get there in the first place. For me, that was a clear penalty. Wolves did get robbed of a point. It should have been 1-1. But end of the day, am I going to complain? Not as much, because it's my team that won. So I don't really care in that sense. But if you're a Wolves fan, you'll definitely feel robbed in that sense. And no surprise that the two officials have been dropped from the weekend games because of it.
No, I tend to agree. Look, Onana was looking directly at the opponent, wasn't he?
Absolutely.
He was going to smash him. So
he saw blood and went for it.
He didn't. He took it. He took his chances and he got away with it, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think any Wolves fans, if they're upset, tough. It's life, isn't it? It's football. It'll bite you. It always does. Darragh, welcome. Finally, how you doing?
I had a lot of issues on my end, and
yes,
I apologize for it. But at the same time, make sure rule of thumb: make sure I have everything ready beforehand.
Right, no worries. Look, welcome to the stream. Is it your first time with us?
It is actually, yeah.
It is your first time.
Yeah.
Top man. Well, welcome. Look, we've just been briefly dissecting the Wolves match. We covered the midfield. We covered obviously the penalty incident, etc. So what we haven't covered is the goal. Just talk to me about how you felt the build-up play was, whether or not that's how we should be playing in terms of kind of playing from deep to get to the front line. Or do you think it was just one of those things where we got lucky in the spur of the moment?
Personally, I was at the game, so you can imagine how stressful, as I was saying to some of my mates, given how stressful it was watching it on TV, imagine being at the stadium trying to divulge everything that was going on around us. But given how Wan-Bissaka was never the most forward right back, it was actually interesting to see him undercut a right wing rather than overlapping. So it's not something that I want to see very often, given the type of football we want to play. But at the same time, like, truthfully, we tried so much in that game, nothing went right. I think it was just one of those cases where we got lucky. And like, as a United fan, I had to go back to what Reece was saying there. I'm also a wrestling fan myself. You see that time and time again in WWE, and even I was talking to my brother about it on the way back from the airport after, and he said literally it's a case of, because he was collecting it. He goes, if you watch the way he's going into it, not to go back over those things, but he was saying if you watch how he angles himself going towards trying to get the ball, you can clearly see the intent is to get the ball, but it's just the way his hands went down. If his hands went high, it should have been a case of, right, fair enough, no penalty, because you could tell he's going for the ball. But in terms of the actual goal, then someone made a very valid point. Why is there a right back and a centre back having to make the goals when the world class attack we have up front as well? Like,
well, we got a next Man United striker on the panel with us, so we'll ask him about that next. I want to talk about Rasmus Højlund then. Is there excitement around him? Some people are on the fence with him. Not a lot of people know a great deal about him, only what we've seen in YouTube clips, maybe the odd Atalanta match. So, Phil, I'll start with you. What do you think about Rasmus? What do you think he'll bring to the side? Do we need to adjust our way of playing? I think we do, personally, because if Ruud was playing in the team on Monday night, he would have been absolutely pulling his wonderful wavy locks out because there was no service coming in. What do you think as a striker? What do you think Rasmus needs to do, and how he'll fit in?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think obviously there's not many of us who will have seen a lot of this lad play. I think he's obviously a young player. Ten Hag obviously likes him and thinks that he sort of fits the bill with the way he wants to play. I think the main thing is obviously getting Rashford back on the left. I think that's his favourite position, and I think that's where you'll get the best out of him. In terms of Højlund, I think it's going to be a case of, we really need him to sort of hit the ground running and sort of fit into a system pretty quickly. The goals are going to be a massive problem for us this year if obviously Rashford doesn't have a similar season to what he had last season. So, we're hanging our hat on him coming in and sort of, being able to score that 15, 20 goals that, all the top sides have. So it's going to be a lot of pressure. I think it's a lot of weight for a young player to come in and have on his shoulders. Very little in terms of experience at the top level. He's coming into the biggest club in the world where everyone's going to be looking at him with the spotlight. And for me, it's going to be a difficult thing for him to do. We all hope that he can step into them shoes and sort of do really well. Again, it's yet to be seen. He's not really probably had much of a pre-season with being injured. The Premier League is a completely different level of football compared to, the German and all the other leagues, in my opinion. I just think it's a lot more physical and demanding. So it is going to be a very difficult start for him. And the fans will probably have to be patient and, give him a little bit of time to bed in. But I'm hopeful that, we have signed a player for the future. And he is going to be a great player, whether that's straight away or in 6 months. That's only time will tell. But again, I think that's the position really now that I obviously said about Harry Kane coming in. I think if Harry Kane would have came in, that sort of puts us in a massive position to be challenging on all fronts, because what you're going to get. He guarantees you 20, 25 goals, league goals. I think he would have been perfect for playing with the likes of Rashford, how he drops in and he can play them little balls in behind, with the pace that we've got. I think he would have been a great signing. Obviously, that's not materialised, and we're just going to have to hope now that, Højlund can come in and, do the business.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Jonathan, I'll bring you on this. What do you think we need to do to evolve our play to accommodate Højlund?
Yeah, I was only just thinking about that today. I was watching a few different review shows about the game on Monday, and there is definitely elements of our game that we need to adapt when he does come into the team. I think one thing we could do is maybe shift Anthony to the left-hand side just as something different, because at the moment he, like a Monday night, like I know no one stood out on Monday night, but again he was just so one-dimensional, so predictable. He gave away so many balls just coming in on that left foot. Like there doesn't seem to be any evolving in his game at all over pre-season, to where he's kind of using his right foot a bit more and becoming a bit more unpredictable. So I think something that we could do as a team would be to shift him to the left-hand side and start whipping in crosses, old-fashioned style, like we used to do about 20 years ago with Giggsy on the left and Beckham on the right. That's why I think someone like Pellistri could be a real asset going forward for United. I can't figure out why he's not getting more minutes. He was one of our more impressive players in pre-season. I was at the game in Dublin. He was really, really sharp that day. Obviously got the equalising goal. He's a typical Uruguayan. He just doesn't stop working. They're so abrasive, really low centre of gravity. He just brings something so different to any of our other wingers. And, Ten Hag in his own way does seem to rate him, but for some reason he just doesn't get a lot of minutes on the pitch when it really matters. But I think someone like him could be very beneficial for someone like Højlund, who's going to feed off crosses and balls into the box. I think someone like him could be more important to Højlund than the likes of Rashford or Bruno, who are two of our more world-class players, if you want. So it is something that Ten Hag could consider, but like what Phil said, it's going to take time. It's a catch-22 situation. He's a 20-year-old that we're going to have to be patient with, but at the same time we need him to hit the ground running because we're so short of goals up front. So look, it's going to be an interesting 12 months. I know like 99% of United fans are going to be behind him, but look, you see the British media, they've been feeding off that penalty decision since Monday. Like the first major miss of Højlund's career, they're going to be feeding off that as well. So it'll be a long season for the lad, but look, hopefully he does do better than everyone expects.
No, I tend to agree. Kyle, reservations from my side is I don't think we've got the crossing ability that a striker could really thrive on. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the way to counteract that would be to bring in Pellistri into the starting 11, as Jonathan has said. He's very much an old-fashioned winger who likes to go down the line and cross it in. And we don't really have anyone else who does that. All our inverted forwards, they're not really wingers. They all like to cut in on their strong foot and shoot. Like Rashford and Garnacho like to cut in from the left and shoot. Anthony and Ahmad on the right, they cut in their left foot and shoot, whereas Pellistri goes down the line, crosses the ball. So he's probably someone who could provide service for a number 9. And yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised by Wan-Bissaka's form in the attacking third of the pitch. Obviously getting the assist for Varane against Wolves, and he looked impressive towards the back end of last season and in pre-season. So he's definitely been our most improved player, and definitely starts ahead of Dalot in most games for me. So yeah, that's obviously Bruno is going to be key to providing service for Rasmus Højlund as well. Keane there in the chat mentioned Bruno playing deeper alongside Casemiro in the Spurs game. Yeah, I can see that happening because he's obviously did that before in pre-season and in games last season as well, as I'm sure everyone remembers. And Bruno was spraying the ball from deep, just like Paul Scholes, not to get too carried away. He's got that in his locker, so that definitely could be an option. And yeah, and I agree with what Keane's saying in the chat there about Ferguson. I would love to see United sign him, but I mean, what if Brighton are going to charge 115 million for Moise Caicedo? What are they going to charge for a striker who's got all the potential in the world?
Well, this is it. Darragh, let's look. I've seen some comparisons that Højlund and Haaland are very similar in the way that they play their assets. I think it's a load of rubbish. I think people who have come up with a comparison don't understand football. Phil, I tell you, striking is very, very difficult because it's mainly about movement. Your touch is secondary. It's getting into the position that allows you to score the goal. Now, we've had players, we've had strikers, in the past that have got into these positions and either can't finish or are too slow across the grass to get there. So what's your feelings on maybe a link up, say, I don't know, maybe with Sancho? Sancho linked up relatively well with Haaland. He kind of understood what Haaland was. Do you think there's a potential that Sancho could mastermind a link up with Højlund? I think, by the way, that Højlund's going to struggle for the first 5 to 8 games. I think it's going to be a very, very difficult bedding in period for him, but I'll be interested to get your thoughts.
Well, I was going to make reference to the point that Keane made in the chat there as well about how Sancho and Haaland linked up very well at Dortmund. So if there's comparisons there from Haaland's time at Dortmund to potentially link up that way, then there's a very good possibility. Like at the end of the day, someone like Sancho, he could play the nice sneaky ball through. Like going back to the comment you made earlier, I'm not too sure if it was yourself, Stu, about the lack of crossing availability. At the end of the day, our main three people who play balls into deep are Luke Shaw, Bruno, and Casemiro. But the problem is they'd be doing it on an earlier cross, whereas we'd want someone getting down the byline and actually whipping it in from there. Jonathan, just to make back to your point there about Anthony on the left wing, I just have one problem with that, and that would be it just brings us the ugly head of a problem we had 2 or 3 years ago. But sorry, we still kind of have it. We have too many left wingers, and we bought Anthony for the right, we bought Sancho for the right, and I just don't know what it's going to take to fit. But in terms of an actual, sorry, Sue, I kind of went on a tangent there. Your actual question was in relation to actually strikers, basically, is it?
Yeah.
So basically, I don't know much about Højlund to comment as to whether he's the right fit. At the end of the day, he's an Ten Hag purchase. Given how successful his purchases were in his first season, I'd have the tendency to back him on his decision. But I can't remember where I saw it now off the top of my head, but I remember seeing a comparison before that Højlund was a Cavani when he was at Napoli. And if it was anything like Cavani at Napoli, I think we might have a decent player on our hands, to say the least. But at the end of the day, I'd want to be comparing him to strikers either from past time at all. At the end of the day, we knew straight away going into this transfer window, having to buy a proper number 9 would cost a bit of money, no matter the age, experience. So we could have gone away and bought Evan Ferguson. God only knows how much he would have cost if we managed to get hold of him. Højlund, Harry Kane, good luck dealing with Daniel Levy. It's a wonder that Bayern even struck a deal with him in the first place. So to get a proper number 9 in today's market is near on impossible, and you're going to have to pay up for it. Like, we see all these different players like Kane, Ferguson, Oshiman, I believe his pronunciation is, in Napoli now. They're playing in systems where they're probably more suited, where it's probably suited to them. Højlund knows coming into a system where it may suit him, he may hit the ground running. But I would probably share your sentiment. He'd probably struggle for the first few games just to get the feel for the Premier League, feel for the way the squad plays. And after that, I do feel once he gets into that comfort zone, when they figure what way to play him, whether they play him as a target man, whether they have him as back to goal, that kind of routine, once they figure the best way for him, whether it be on the training pitch or trying to take something to the field, I think he'll thrive after that.
Yeah, look, for me, he's going to have to play off the shoulder for the first few games. Forget getting involved in the intricate play off the shoulder and see what we get with him. But then again, he's got to be serviced. And we all know on this panel that Rashford and Anthony got a phobia, and then he's crossing the football. They just don't get it, don't understand what their roles are occasionally. If you're going to cut in, great, but attack the diagonal. They don't even attack the diagonal anymore, and this is going to be the issue. So I think Højlund's going to have to make his own chances, and the only way he'll do that is by playing off the shoulder. Reece, question for you. We know we're out without Højlund for maybe 3, maybe 4 weeks, depending on what you read, depending on what you hear. We don't know where we are with Martial at the time being. Do we go in and get a striker even on loan, or do we bet on our good old friend Anthony Martial? What do you think?
No, we don't move for another striker. Not in my opinion. I don't think we need to. I think the minute you go moving for another striker, even if it's 3 or 4 weeks out, that's already questioning the new signing anyway. It's questioning about, will he actually step up to the occasion instead of being able to give him a chance to embed him with the current group. I don't think we necessarily need another striker. But what we do need to do is actually change the whole dynamic of how we play. And the way we play is not going to get the best out of Højlund. I'm telling you. I'm telling you for a fact. I watch Serie A religiously. it's not going to work. The way we play does not suit him. If it's going to work for him, we actually need more than just service. We actually need players higher up the field that are actually comfortable. I look at the midfield, and I'll say as well, our whole midfield sucked against Wolves. All three of them. None of them were good enough. Like, Casemiro was more lost than, well, the series had lost itself. Fernandes was nowhere to be found. And to be fair, I actually think Mason Mount was the better out of all three of them. Out of all three of them, I thought Mount was the better of the three, but that's not saying much because they were like, even he was lost. I think what you really do need in abundance is we need at least two players in there that are actually accustomed to possession football. They're actually accustomed to quicker transitional play. And the one that makes sense is Sofyan Amrabat. Fantastic player. He was second last season in Serie A, highest passing percentages to Lobotka from Napoli, funnily enough. When you look at how we play, we also need that, but we also need players to be more tight-knit together, especially in this system, because he played in a very compact system at Atalanta. He had Luis Muriel around him, brilliant striker who was the target man. In a nutshell, we also had pace in abundance to drop off the shoulder. You had Koopmeiners as well, and Martin de Roon, underrated midfielders that could actually pass a ball competently, and they were really good at holding the ball. And they were also really good, competent fullbacks as well that actually knew what they were doing. When I look at our system and I'm looking at it, and I think Wan-Bissaka's improved in a nutshell, but I stand by what I said in pre-season. I still don't think Wan-Bissaka is the right man for our right-back position going forward. And I don't think Dalot is either. I think we do need to look at another long-term option at right back. Wan-Bissaka for now is completely fine. It gives us at least a defensive solidity. That's fine. At least it gives us positional strength on the right-hand side where Varane isn't as quick as he used to be, but he's still a reliable defender. But if we're playing a 4-3-3 where it's very flat, Casemiro is going to be exposed. And I'll say this as well, if we do sign Amrabat's my defensive midfielder, not Casemiro. I'm playing Casemiro in a box-to-box role, and I'm dropping either Mount or Fernandes because you can't play those three in the same midfield. I'm playing either or. Amrabat's my defensive midfielder because he's passing range, and also he's a more aggressive tackler. And obviously I watched Fiorentina obviously against Milan, obviously, so Amrabat was effective in the midfield for Vincenzo Italiano's side. He was, in my opinion, even though West Ham won the Conference League final, Amrabat was the best player in the field for me. When he played, like, West Ham didn't know how to cope with him. Declan Rice was outstanding in that final, give or take. Like, I know a lot of people rate Declan Rice. I think he's all right. I'm not like a massive fan of his, but he was good in that final. But when I look in that game, it was one player taking out two on his own, and that says a lot. He is one player that we desperately need on our side. Højlund is going to play off back to goal in his first 3 or 4 games. I agree with you, but essentially for me, he has to be a target man, and I don't think he's going to get near 20 goals in his first season. I'm going to say maximum maybe 18. I think 18 all competitions, maybe 12 in the league. And a lot of people are going to come at that saying, well, what, 12 goals for a £70 million player? Aye, but this is the Premier League. You're not immediately going to come in and get 20 goals in your first season. Like, not every striker's a freak. Like, it's not going to work. It's not going to work like that. So,
I think you're
in a
right,
nutshell, yeah. And I agree with the wingers. Like, we do need at least one or two that are actually fundamentally sound at delivering a ball. Rashford can't deliver a ball, not just off his right foot, but he can't even deliver off his left foot. He's a brilliant player at coming at players that can attack, and that's essential for us right now. We're Phil spot on. Like, we relied heavy on Ronaldo a couple of years ago, just like we relied on Rashford last year. They were the main source of goals. So I'm thinking if we really do want to get more out of Højlund and want to get more out of Pellistri, is a great example. I think Pellistri's fine. I actually think out of the younger wingers that we have, I rank ceiling. I go Garnacho at the top, Pellistri, and then Amad Diallo. I think Diallo's a great player. But I think he still needs a Premier League loan. I think Pellistri's actually more ready to go. I agree with Jonathan's sentiment. I don't understand why he doesn't get more minutes, because he was one of Uruguay's best players as well at the World Cup, and Uruguay were atrocious in their 3 games. He was brilliant. The minute he came on, the first thing he was looking for was a cross into the box to get a goal from the likes of Cavani or Fede Valverde. Didn't come, but at least he was actually looking for it. Anthony on the left wing, yeah, maybe, but I don't know. I just think we need them to work as a team, and essentially, we still don't.
No, just touching on Palestra, he's a 10 for me, by the way, fellas. He's not an out-and-out winger.
I think Sancho's more of the 10 than
Palestra's much better. Palestra would be much better in a free role. He's got such a low centre of gravity. Dribbles really nice. He's quite strong. He's quite direct. It'd be a better 10. You watch him develop it. I think it'd be a 10. He won't end up as a winger. He'll as a 10.
I think so. I think that's fair. But then again, though, if that's the case, then that's taking away some of his strengths as well. If you're playing him as a 10, yes, you can play the shorter, more acute balls at the box, and that's fine. But you're taking away other dimensions to his game, which is his pace, taking on fullbacks and going, trying to cut in those spaces where he can get behind the fullback and then deliver a cross. Now, essentially, that's good when he can drift out wide if he's playing the midfield role, if he's playing number 10. But
yeah, exactly.
Necessarily, that means you're going to have to free up more positions by making more radical changes. And the more radical changes Ten Hag makes, I think that sets us back rather than takes us forward. And obviously, I want the team to go forward. I want it to go well with Ten Hag. If he makes more of these radical positional changes, it might not actually benefit the team. It might regress. Now, Sancho is a great example of redefining his role in a false nine role. But essentially, that might not have worked as well. Like, there's times where you've got to do it and then do it in a manner of speaking where it works. But if you put Palestra in a 10 role the next couple of games, I think we're in massive trouble. I'd rather keep him on the wing, but at times bring him in the middle where he can just rotate in. But I would rather him be a wide.
He'll end up as a 10. I don't think right now.
I think he could, though. He might, he could, though. Yeah.
Right, crikey, we're 40 minutes in, fellas. But I touch on Tottenham, I suppose. Otherwise, Keane's going to be me a right rollicking. Almost swore there, but Talk Sport would have killed me. Right, let's look ahead.
At least it's not me for a change.
Yeah, that's true. Let's look ahead to Tottenham Saturday. It's 5:30, I think, isn't it? 5:30 kickoff away at Spurs. What do we know about Ange Postecoglou? We obviously know he's Australian. We obviously know that I think he won the treble, didn't he, with Celtic? Not like what Scottish footballer are interested in Scottish football. And he appears, from what I can see, to be heavily invested in Guardiola's 4-3-3 system with the inverted fullbacks. Yawn, yawn, yawn. So that's what I've picked up. Phil, what's your thoughts on Ange? And how do you think we'll fare Saturday?
Yeah, again, I don't know a great deal about him. As you just said, I think he does sort of like the Pep Guardiola formation. I think, as you said before, I think now Kane's gone, they are going to set up a lot differently, and it could maybe benefit him. I think there'll be a lot more positive in terms of getting bodies forward and playing a little bit more with pace in the final third. I think am I right in saying they won the first game? Did they against Brentford?
Yeah, 2-2.
Draw. Okay,
it's a good game though. It's a good game of football.
Yeah. So again, they're a team sort of in a little bit of a transition. They've lost the best player. They've got James Maddison in, who's a good player. I think he was a good signing for him. He'll bring that little bit more creativity that they've probably been lacking in previous seasons. But yeah, I think it's a game that we need to be sort of a lot better and a lot sharper. I think I was very surprised the other night at the way Wolves was first to the second balls. They just looked a lot sharper all over the field. 50-50 they seemed to win. And I think against Tottenham, who are now going to be a different side, being a lot more physical and sort of in your face, I think we need to be up for a fight and up for a battle, because they're the type of games where if you aren't up for it, that they could come and steamroll us really. And I think the reaction that we're going to need to have obviously in that game is going to be a test of where we are with certain players. I think there was a couple of players there who you could maybe give the benefit of the doubt to in that Wolves game. I think Jonathan maybe mentioned it before, saying that Wolves played a really exceptional game, and not really many people would have expected that. I think looking at it on paper before, you would have probably looked at that midfield three and thought that they would have been more than comfortable, and I think it just didn't pan out that way, mainly down to the way Wolves played. Obviously, we was a lot to do with that as well. We was off the pace and we didn't sort of play as nowhere near as well as we can, but Wolves were fantastic on the night and sort of took everyone by surprise. I think that is the Premier League. You've got to make sure every week that you're at it and you turn up with the right mentality and the attitude, because any team on the day can turn you over. And I think Tottenham are obviously going to be a team this year with a point to prove, because everyone's probably writing them off and thinking that they're going to have maybe a season or two in a transitional period with a new manager and losing some of the big players.
No, I totally agree. I think they're going to surprise a few fans this year, Tottenham. Darragh, we obviously saw a gaping 20-yard hole in our midfield, and I think Wolves exploited that quite well. What do you think Maddison will do if he had that similar space to work in? How dangerous do you think he can be just as a single entity?
Honestly, I think if we play the same way we played against Wolves and Maddison on his day, we will get ripped apart in that midfield, because it's just the way that the man would just ping balls in. And I'll go out on a limb and say it. You can clip this if you want, guys. Richarlison under Postecoglou might just actually be the key, because anytime he was playing under Conte, he was either coming in behind Kane or he was coming in off the right. So I don't know. I get that sneaky feeling that Richarlison might actually do good for Spurs this year. Hopefully not against us, otherwise this would be embarrassing. But no, in terms of Maddison, I do find he would have been the next best player. Like, say, when we were looking at Mount, I was saying to myself, well, if we're looking at someone who can kind of do 8, 10, or maybe on the left or right, Maddison would have been one of the other options that I would have looked at other than Mason Mount personally. I always liked him at the Leicester game last year, and in a bad Leicester side, he was the shining point. So at the same so I was kind of saying to myself, why weren't we going for him now? At the end of the day, I'm happy with Mount. From what I can see off the ball and out of possession, he is one of the better players. Now, I'm saying all this, but I do find maybe just to see how the experimentation works, do we play Eriksen instead of Mount against Tottenham? That's just my opinion. But where the tactics suit, Mount is the perfect fit there. Maybe if we were looking at another number 10 to fight with Bruno, say, for example, Maddison would have been better. But the fact that Mount has that versatility, that Maddison would have been the better fit as the number 10 competition for Bruno. But in terms of how we played now on Monday night, if you watch that game back and see how our midfield was, as you made the point there was a 20-yard gap in the midfield. When you're trying to watch the game as it's flowing, you don't notice that as much until you watch it back after, and you see the gaps. And it's just how in between Monday night and Saturday evening, how Ten Hag will get the best out of Mount to say, if he wants to keep Mount in that midfield and say, look, you kind of have to hang back here. It came across the two in Mount and Bruno were doing both in a free roll kind of scenario. It seemed the way they were so high up the pitch, it seemed like both were in a free roll. So it's about bringing Mount back is the problem, because I feel if you let Bruno do his thing as a free roll, fine. But you can't have two midfielders in a free roll and have such a gap like that, like we did on Monday night.
Absolutely, Darragh. I mean, look, common sense is a big thing in football, and it didn't play out too well on Monday. Reece, I want to bring you back in sooner than I would do normally, but I want you talking to me about their fullbacks. I think it was Porro and Reglio. Am I right in saying that?
Emerson Royale.
Is it Royale?
Porro was on the bench, yeah.
Yeah, so as I said before, Postecoglou seems to be a bit of a Guardiola disciple. How important do you think their inversion into the midfield will be against ours on Saturday? Because obviously we don't invert too much. I know that individually on the odd occasion, Wan-Bissaka will do, and so will Luke Shaw. Well, actually, not so much Luke Shaw, mainly Wan-Bissaka. But how key do you think that'll be to the tactical side of the game Saturday?
Well, I've seen his teams firsthand live. Like I've seen these teams firsthand live. He's actually, concerning the club he used to manage, don't like that. But I'll say that.
Stay off that. Come on.
Nah, sorry, Keane's sounding me saying that. But in all respect, though, I actually do like Postecoglou as a manager. I like his direct style. But the one thing about though is like it is direct with possession and it is dictating the course of a game. The only thing is though is you can get away with having 74% possession up here in Scotland. You're going to get away with that. That's fine. But it's 70 odd percent possession in the Premier League, and there's only one team in the Premier League that's actually good enough to play that level of percentage for 90 minutes, and that's the Blues that obviously won the Flaming Super Cup last night. Disgusting. So thanks for that painful moment, Sevilla, for ruining another European night. Circumstantial, of course, is when you look at this Tottenham side, though. I mean, I don't particularly rate Emerson Royale, but
no,
I don't think he's that good. Like, especially as a defensive aspect, I think he's very liable. I don't think he's going to help in that situation. But going forward, I mean, it seemed to have worked with Postecoglou as well. At least he was able to get him improved in an attacking sense. I think Pedro Porro's a better player, but Pedro Porro's inhibited. He came from a sporting side that was. He's inhibited because he came from a sporting side that were exclusively playing a back three under Ruben Amorim, and that's all he knows is playing as a wing back. He's not a traditional fullback. But then again, though, he's younger. I think he's more technically sound. I think it's actually more easier and accustomed for him to transition from a wing back into a fullback. But then again, though, Postecoglou, if he's going to play them a very high line, which he did at Celtic a lot, they played a very extensive high line, which at times to catch them out, it'll go in our favour as well at times on Saturday. The high line is by playing Pedro Porro higher up as well. Effectively, you could play Pedro Porro as a wing back instead of a full back. Whoever plays on the left hand side, whether it be Reguilon or I think Ryan Sessegnon still there, or even if it's Perisic, like if he was to start Perisic, they could use him as a traditional full back, give them the defensive duties, and let's just Pedro Porro bomb forward. He's an excellent crosser. He's brilliant at underlapping as well. He's fantastic at overlapping. I think he's a brilliant player. I really like him. So I think it's what's more key for Tottenham is the midfield. It's the midfield actually is more of my feeling and how they get
just hold your
the
thoughts
balance
on
right.
Yeah, just hold your thoughts on that because I do.
I'll get that, but for me though, the big thing is who they play at fullback. And for me personally, if it's Emerson Royale against us on Saturday, I'll be counting money. If it's Pedro Porro, I'll be counting a draw. Just saying.
Yeah, no, interesting. Carl, the reason I quashed Reece's flames there was because Reece knows that one of my favourite holding players is Højlund. I think he's an excellent talent. I can't believe we never went in for him. I mentioned it on various streams, and the usual moronic Man United fans ridiculed me. And obviously, once again, I've been proven right because Højlund is actually instrumental in the way that Tottenham play. So how much, and I asked Darragh actually about the kind of space that if Maddison got, how dangerous it would be, but how much space do you think Højlund can create by himself? And how kind of dangerous do you think he will be if you look at how we played on Monday? If we played similar Saturday, what do we need to do to counteract the Højlund effect?
We cannot line up with that midfield. We cannot give the Spurs midfield any space. So, yeah, he's got a number of options. He's going to have to play. Probably going to have to play Bruno alongside Casemiro, or he could do what Keane is suggesting, which is bring McTominay into the starting 11. But that would be very defeatist early on to, after one game of the new midfield, to then bring McTominay in for the second game because we're playing Spurs away from home. I wouldn't want to do that personally, but it is certainly as an option for the manager. Obviously, Fred isn't here anymore. You can't bring him in anymore for away games against the big sides or FA Cup finals. Or until obviously we want, if Amrabat was over the line, he would definitely start this game. I feel Kobe Manu would probably start the game if he was available. So the only really thing he can do really is either play Bruno a bit deeper or bring in McTominay. I feel certainly cannot allow the same scenario to unfold where Mount and Bruno are too far forward and Casemiro's left exposed. Casemiro looks very short of energy. I hope this is not the start of the aging process for Casemiro. This is what we all feared when we signed a man who was nearly 31 for 70 million euro. Reece wants to jump in. Go ahead.
You can, yeah, quickly, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Matt, I think he should stick with the midfield, but I'm going to say something that might just shock everybody, but I think he should just stop giving the free rolls to the midfield. I don't think we are generally good enough with free roaming midfielders, unless it's Fernandes with a competent midfield base. I actually think the best case we've got against Tottenham is actually our midfield is actually sticking to just their central space. So if they're in like a boxed area on their own, you keep them close to one area of like a triangle in the midfield. Personally, I don't think we should be going free roam against any of the big sides this year. I think we'll still get turned over. I would rather whoever plays, doesn't matter who plays in that midfield, if it's against the likes of Burnley or a Luton or Sheffield or even against like an Everton, then I'm okay with us playing a free roam player in a free roam position. But against the likes of Tottenham and all that, even against Wolves, like this, when we play them in Molyneux or even Liverpool and all that, like for me personally, it doesn't matter who plays in that midfield, the free roaming midfielders got to stop. It's not going to work in these games, especially in the Prem. I think
Reece,
we're not accustomed to that.
You've left me onto a good segue there because it's a question I was going to ask Jonathan because I was going to put Jonathan right on the spot with this one. Reece, we've been working on streams for 3 years now, something along those lines. I talk about a lot of football's mainly common sense. So here's my question.
And divas.
Yeah, that's right. So here's my question to Jonathan. If we were to stick with, as suggested, then we stick with the midfield three that started on Monday. Because I saw a massive lack of common sense football. And what I mean by that is, Bruno and Mount only had to look over the shoulder and then they've seen Casemiro through binoculars because they weren't close enough to him. They weren't not in a particular set triangle. As a lover of the game, as a lover of Manchester United, I'm sure you play the game. Does it absolutely grind your gears when you see footballers not willing to adapt to the system or not willing to put the work in, not use their brains, their eyes, their ears, and their senses? Because really, football is 90% of your senses, 10% of your legs. Your legs get you there and they do the end product, but you've got to think, see, hear before you do anything else in football. And I saw a massive, it just didn't occur to me. It didn't happen. So I was just wondering what your thoughts are on that and how you would, if you were Ten Hag, what would you say?
Yeah, it was one of the things that frustrated me the most watching the game on Monday night. I mean, managers get a lot of flack for how they set their teams up, and like a lot of the time they don't. They're not going to get it right. Like opponents are going to surprise you, like Wolves did on Monday. But when you're looking at a team with the quality of Man United and the international players they have on the pitch, they should be well capable of fixing the system on the pitch. I've done it myself many times and look at a much, much, much lower level. But it is the same common sense principles still apply. If you're on a pitch and you can see and you can feel that something's not working, then you've just got to adapt. You've got to, like the likes of Bruno there or Mason Mount on Monday, they could have openly see that they were getting caught high up the pitch time after time after time. At some point, Bruno, especially as captain, should have been either saying to Mason or doing it himself, look, one of us needs to just drop deep here for 15 or 20 minutes just to take the sting out of Wolves so we can get a foothold back in this game. And that was one of the things that was making me tear my head out on Monday night, because obviously it became obvious the second half that we needed to make changes. I thought Ten Hag was quite slow to make substitutions on Monday night. But at the same time, the lack of on-field leadership really did annoy me. Like even like the likes of Casemiro and Varane, I mean, these are absolute experienced winners. They know what it takes to win. I'm sure when they were sent out to win Champions Leagues under Carlo Ancelotti and Zinedine Zidane, those managers didn't get it right to the absolute letter of the law when they sent them out to the field. Things have to be tweaked on the field. And it is an extremely frustrating thing, because I guarantee on Saturday you will see a reaction from these guys. They will be more tactically cute. I think the way we set up, I think we will have the same midfield three, because I don't see Ten Hag just dropping Mason Mount after one game. It's going to put too much pressure on him. These guys need games together in order to gel and get that kind of spirit together and get that kind of telepathy going. So I think they will stick with the same midfield three, but it's going to be a completely different game, because Spurs had something like 69.8% possession against Brentford. They like to have the ball, which is going to mean that we're going to line up differently than we would against the Wolves at home. So you'd like to think that separation between the back five and the front five, it won't be as great on Saturday. United are going to have to be more tight and compact and probably hit Spurs on the break. That's what we do against the big teams away from home.
No, I agree. Let's just hope we don't have the Eric Lamela show once again. He always used to turn up against us, didn't he, the swine? Guys, we've had over an hour of what I consider to be great football chat. Thanks everyone for your comments, because they've been brilliant. But let's have a look at the side on Saturday. I guess we're all in agreement. If Martinez is fit, the back five, i.e. Onana, Wan-Bissaka, Varane, Martinez and Shaw. Are we thinking any changes? Would you expect any changes, guys? Phil?
No, I would agree with that. Obviously, Martinez, depending on whether he's fit, I think that back five will stay the same, in my opinion. I think Lindelof obviously may come in if Martinez is struggling, but it stays the same.
Just a quick question about Martinez. What did we think of his 45 minutes?
I'll admit I'm probably the biggest Martinez fan on this panel, and I was completely disappointed in him.
Yeah,
I thought his performance. I'll say it nicely. I thought his performance was pathetic, and I don't think it made it worse for himself, where he made a ridiculous challenge at the touchline that I don't even think he needed to do. And risked himself as well. He's just came back from an injury. We know what he's like. I mean, that I get that. That's completely fine, but he's not long back from a major injury. He's not fully up to speed, despite the preseason. He was particularly slow in preseason, in my opinion, as well. And he comes and makes a stupid challenge. Lucky they didn't miss time that. That would have been a red. Then we would have been an even bigger disadvantage. So, I'll be honest, he's 45 minutes. Nah, ridiculous. Well, it'll get better, obviously, but it was woeful. So I agree with the decision to take him off as well at half time for Lindelof.
Yeah. Look, as a centre half, I totally agree.
Yeah, I think, Stu, just coming back to that point again, I said it at the beginning of the podcast, I think Wolves were far fitter, sharper, and more up the game. I think every single 50-50 and second ball, he was first to it, and for the first game of the season, being at home, it was a shock really that we was up for it and didn't seem like we was at the races all over the park. I think you could go from 1 to 11 really, and in the individual battles, I'd say we probably won maybe 1 or 2, and Wolves were far superior all over the pitch.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, I totally agree. There's a couple of things for me. I thought Wolves were good in pre-season. They flew under the radar. Nobody really paid much attention to them. Lopetegui got them going, and I don't think O'Neill changed too much. More importantly, I thought our pre-season schedule was ridiculous. It's really hampered us. We came back from playing so many games, and what did we have? 12 days off or something ridiculous before we actually started.
I was going to reference a comment, because also Jonathan's in our the WhatsApp group as well, and Jonathan made a great comment. I think literally just before the game in Dublin, he was like, "I get there was players coming in for the United game at Old Trafford, but what was the bloody point? Should have just done like the last game, the main game should have just been in Dublin and ended there." I thought that's exactly what they should have done. It made no sense to have the game at Old Trafford. I know it's Old Trafford. You're coming to Old Trafford at the start of the season anyway. It made no sense.
Well, we had 2 double headers. We had 2 double headers, over in the States and
exactly. So we should have just left it at that. Dublin was the end of it, but no, we had to put in an extra game that actually did nothing for the team. It made us look far too leggy as well. I think that comes in as well.
Yeah, I think we were leggy. I think the players have got to look at themselves. Phil, I tell you, as a footballer, it's up to you to keep your fitness at a level. You should always be match sharp, and that's down to you as an individual to do that. And I felt we fell way short of that. Who wants the tricky task of midfield? who wants to Who wants to put their head above the parapet and choose our midfield three?
I'll take that role.
Go on, Darragh. Top man.
So, like I was saying there earlier, I agree with everyone was saying about sticking with the three midfield, because at the end of the day, with this Reece, I believe, Reece or Kyle, I believe, made the point that if you drop Mount, it puts the pressure on them straight away to perform in the next game, and after that, there's just no way of them gelling if you're going to be constantly taking him in and putting him out. Now, if the game sets up differently, depending on the team, of course, you take Mount out and you put someone like Casemiro partnered with Eriksen, or even as Keane made in the comment, McTominay. But here, I would put my head in the table and say, to stick with the front three. The only change I would make, if you are going to take Mount out, I do agree slightly with Keane for the point of bringing in McTominay for the physicality. But if we're going to be trying to break lines, and the fact that Tottenham will play the high line, if you're going to break line, go on the counter attack, you may as well put Eriksen in and be able to ping the ball down the line, play it to Rashford if he's playing off the left. That's the way I look at it anyway.
Okay. What do we think? Open up to you guys. Kyle, do you want to come in, fella?
On the midfield?
Yeah, we're doing midfield at the
minute. Yeah, I don't think he'll drop Mount after one game. So I think what he'll do is probably play Bruno alongside Casemiro and play Mount as the further forward. Or he could, I'm just kind of throwing it out there, he might not do this, but he could go with a diamond maybe. Let's see, with Casemiro at the tip, Bruno on the right, and Mount on the left, with potentially Jadon Sancho as the 10, and then I don't think Rashford up top then with I don't know. I'm not sure now.
Anthony.
Anthony,
he's likely to play Anthony. Look, that's an interesting formation.
I completely agree with. He's completely read my mind. I completely agree with Kyle. To be fair, I mean, apart from not dropping the midfield, I think a diamond actually works, because when you think about how Tottenham are going to own the possession on Saturday, they're going to have all the ball. We're going to have very little of the ball. We're going to have at least 40%. That's it. We're not going to have a lot of the ball. I actually think a diamond does work, because if anything, it gives us a chance to quickly count on it. If we have a compact base midfield four, they're not going to be able to get through it. The good thing for us as well is if you play a diamond, your width comes from fullbacks. If ours are in a good position to go, it's just going to be a clash of fullback versus fullback. We'll have that. I think we'll have that advantage anyway, because Emerson Royale can't defend to save himself. So we already have that advantage from left back to right back. So I think we have got that if we do that. If we do play the midfield three, though, that we already played, and we stick with the 4-3-3, my only request to Ten Hag is he keeps them narrow and he keeps them actually in a flat midfield system that will work to the midfield.
You've got to play
give them free roam. I do not want free roaming players against Tottenham. We will get, if we play Fernandes and Mountain as a free roaming midfielder, we will get turned over, and this time we will concede.
You can't. You've got to get tight to Maddison. That's for definite.
Yeah.
So based on Kyle's formation, fellas, that leaves two up top. Jonathan.
We might even see our old friend Anthony Martial get a run out on Sunday or Saturday, I think.
Is he fit?
He was on the bench on Monday. Now I don't know how fit he was Monday, but he played on Tuesday against a behind closed doors friendly against Everton.
We won 3-0, didn't we? Yeah.
So he might be getting close. So I know he's not fully. He's not going to play 90 minutes. He probably hasn't played 90 minutes since since about 14 or something like that with the injuries he's had. But I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Anthony Martial up front. Maybe not as a.
I hope he doesn't start I hope he does not start. If he starts, we are already a man down. We're already a man down if he starts, and that's not like, as soon as he'll get injured or anything. It's a man down because he is nowhere near up to speed, and we'll have to have at least two players around him just to actually cover him. If you've not got a fully fit striker and you're playing a system like that, you're at such a big disadvantage. Like, I would rather that if we end up playing a diamond, for example, I'd rather play Rashford as the one that's going to move around, and I'd keep maybe Sancho closer to the centre. Like, if it's going to be Garnacho, like, as well, who's more direct. But holy hell, please, if we're playing a diamond, do not start Martial.
So, for the record, I don't think we play a diamond. I do think we keep with our same midfield. I think we play a floating front three. I think we play a dynamic front three. Sancho, Rashford, and Anthony. Garnacho doesn't make it for me. Sancho will start in the 9-ish position, but then I think he'll interchange with Rashford. Not so much Anthony, although I would flip the three. Phil will tell you is, and I'll tell you as a centre half, if you don't know who you're marking, it's a nightmare, absolute nightmare. If you've got people constantly changing position, you don't know who to pick up. Blacks don't know who to pick up. And I think that's a much better system for us. I tend to agree. I think as much as I don't think mine's quite, at this point in time, is the right choice for us, I think you guys are right. I think, although he's an elite professional, so it shouldn't really bother him too much, but I think he'll take it to heart. I don't think he's got the minerals to kind of sit it out for a few games. I think he'll start crying and belly aching, and I think that'll be a problem for us. So I think he'll run with a 4-3-3, but I think we'll have problems. If Reece is right and maybe Porro comes in, I think we'll have issues because I think they'll push us back. I don't think Shaw will get over the halfway line. I don't see Wan getting over the halfway line. If Porro comes in, if he doesn't, then I can really see us being able to attack them.
Just watch if they play that 4-2-3-1, which they did against Brentford, and say it's traditional 4-3-3. If they play that system, just watch their back four. Pedro Porro will be at least 10-15 yards ahead of whoever plays their centre backs, and it'll be the left hand side. It'll be 5 yards back, guaranteed.
Yeah. No, I agree. My preferred is to bring Eriksen in for Mount, by the way, fellas, and I tend to agree with Darragh. I think if we're looking to play certain passes, certain elements that we're playing, certainly at the beginning of the season last year, we would cause Tottenham huge problems. But look, Maddison can do the same. Højlund can do the same in terms of breaking up the play, Amrabat type style. I think it's going to be a very, very difficult game of football, gents. And if we can come away with a 1-0 win, I think we should be quite grateful of the fact we come away with a 1-0 win. It's not going to be an easy game. Lads, that brings us to score prediction. Phil, what do you think?
I'm going to go for a 2-1. I think we definitely need to see a reaction all over the pitch. I think we need to be a lot better. I think we was lucky the other day not to concede, so I think Tottenham will score. But I'm just hoping that, if we can play anything like I know we can, and some of the players, who haven't sort of hit any real form yet can start to show a little bit more, I think we should have enough to just about get over the line and get a positive result.
Excellent. Who do you think will get the first goal for us?
I'm going to go for Rashford. I think Rashford scored a good goal away at Tottenham, if I'm right, last year. So I think, he's definitely going to be looking to try and get his goal scoring form underway as soon as he can. Obviously, he had a great season last year and, was our best scoring player. So I'm hoping if he can, get on the score sheet tomorrow, that'll kickstart him and hopefully he can hit a little purple patch until Højlund comes back in.
Yeah, I totally agree. Kyle, what are your thoughts, pal, score-wise?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a draw, to be honest. I hope I'm wrong. Hope United win the game. But I can see, based on what I've seen of the Spurs-Brentford game, Spurs very, very good going forward. I mean, Maddison could have had a hat-trick of assists. They do look a bit ropey at the back. Mbeumo could have had another goal. I don't know how he didn't score that. That could have been 3-each that game. So I think this game will have at least 4 goals in it, and I'm going to go for 2 each. And I think Rashford and Sancho will score the United goals.
Excellent, Jonathan.
Yeah, I agree with Kyle. I think it's going to be a draw. I think United will be a lot more defensively solid, but I do think Spurs will score. I think they've got a lot of quality up front with Kulusevski and Richarlison and Son, and we did look a bit ropey at the back the other night, so I think they will score. I think it'll be a tight enough 1-1 draw. I think I don't think there'll be a hell of a lot of chance. I think both teams will be sceptical, but I fancy Sancho to get a goal on Saturday. I hope he does, because he's had a good pre-season and he did well on Monday. So I'd like to see him get a goal.
Superb. Reece?
3-3.
Oh, wow. Who's your first? Who scores the first goal?
Tottenham go 2-0 up.
Crikey.
I'm only joking. Nah, 3-3, but I think we score first. I think Varane will score first again, to be fair. I think his position at the weekend might actually give him confidence to try it again. A little bit, even though it was a fluky assist, to be fair. You always like a little bit of a fluke pass. I quite like that, to be fair. 3-3. I think Varane scores first, and I think there will be a sending off as well, but it won't be for us.
Okay. Darragh, what are your thoughts?
I don't like the fact that Reece is predicting a red card for us already. Please don't say it's Casemiro.
But I said red card, but I didn't say United.
Oh, I thought you did. My bad. But no, I'll share Phil's sentiments in the scoreline. I'm going to say 2-1 in terms of first goal score. It all depends, of course, on how we line up. But if we're going off of what we predicted there for lineups, if we have Sancho playing the false nine, I predicted it'll be him. If it's not him in the false nine position, I'm just going to take the easy guess and say Bruno.
Okay, cool. I think we'll win 1-0, and big Harry Maguire is going to come on with a bullet header, 85th minute. And
agenda's got to agenda, but still got to pick Maguire, eh? I respect that, man.
I think look, it's going to go one or two ways, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's either going to be a pen and Bruno pops it away with a pen, or you're going to get this kind of flukish, freakish goal that wins the match. And I think Harry could come on. Who knows? Who knows in football? So big Harry Maguire for me. Bang, get in, son.
One thing that's interesting is how long the high line lasts.
I swear, I don't even think a 90-minute winner from Harry Maguire can save his time at United now, with the way the fans react to the fact that the West Ham deal fell through.
Oh, never.
That is not why Stu's trying to cash in checks on a Harry Maguire.
Who knows? I like Maguire. You know, he's got his faults just like every other player, but the bottom line is we didn't look particularly great. In fact, if you remember our last 7 games, Martinez Varane, very shaky last part of the season. There are times where players need to come in. They need to get their own confidence back up. Maguire's clearly a confidence player, but sometimes you just got to back to basics. You really have. You've got to go back to what you were good at. Sometimes think about what made you a professional footballer in the first place. What was your attributes that got you into professional footballer? And then that's how you do it. Sometimes you just got to look within yourself again, and that's what I would be doing if I was Harry Maguire. Luckily for me, I didn't get too many injuries, but I know players that have really struggled with injuries come back and are frightened to put the tackle in the first tackle, and they'll go up for the first header just in case they get elbowed or this or that. And maybe Maguire having somebody like Onana who's proven that I'm just going to come and clean every fucker out. Excuse me, talk sport. Doesn't matter who you are, whether you're my player or the opposition, I'm going to clean you out. Maybe he needs that back in his life again. It's one of those things. So who knows? Who knows? If he stays, I ain't got an issue with it. I think he probably needs to go for his career. And if he wants to be a regular starter for England, I think he needs to go. But there are attributes within that player. And if we don't have the money to go and sign other players, and maybe, just maybe, he may come good. I don't know. It's a difficult thing to say, but I quite like him. Anyway, guys, thank you ever so much. We've done an hour and 20 minutes. I don't know about you, but I think it's absolutely flying by. So, look, before we close, where can people find you on your socials, Phil?
My Twitter handle is Marshy20.
Go follow the guy and say hello to him. Kyle?
I just wanted to quickly mention Vicario, the Spurs goalkeeper, clattering into a Brentford forward. Yeah, that wasn't debated on TalkSport or Sky News for 3 days solid, was it?
No, never does. Never does. Not Man United, are they? Irrelevant clubs, Kyle. Irrelevant clubs.
Yeah, it's Manchester United that everybody wants to talk about, regardless of who you support. Yeah, you can find me on the Glory Manchester United podcast.
Okay, Twitter or
Twitter, Kyle7Quinn.
okay, go and give him a follow. Jonathan.
Yeah, Twitter handle just below or at Snooker America.
Okay, Reece.
You can find me at Lord of the Fence Sitters. I'm just kidding. Devil's Rising on Twitter and the Weekly Steel Chair on YouTube. Thanks.
And Darragh, mate.
My Twitter handle is just underneath here, at Darragh Cash.
Lovely. And you all know me, actually, Wooly. As I always say, feel free to come and abuse me or try your luck anyway.
you heard that. You heard that, viewers. He's giving you permission. So just call me Diva.
Yeah. Hey, look, let's hope for a win. Just want to thank you all for joining me. It's been great. This is I'm not going to say that. Look, keep your eye on the Devil's Advocate podcast. I think there's lots coming on between now and the weekend. I know there'll be a show review with Mark Biggs. And I think Jamie's going to come back in the next week or two with his show as well. So it just leaves me to say thank you very much from me and my guests. Roll on Manchester United, and let's hope we get the win. Thank you, guys. Take care.